Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Canto 7, Chapter 5, text number 6. Prahlad Maharaj has just responded to his father's question, what's the best thing that you learned? And he gave him a very direct answer, and his father is not liking it. Narada Muni continued, when Prahlad Maharaj spoke about the path of self-realization and devotional service, thus being faithful to the camp of his father's enemies, Hiranyakasipu, the king of the demons, heard Prahlad's words, and he laughingly said, thus is the intelligence of children spoiled by the words of the enemy. Purport: Hiranyakasipu, being a demon, would always consider Lord Vishnu and his devotees, like Prahlad, to be his enemies. Therefore, the word para, paksha, on the side of the enemy, is used here. Hiranyakasipu never agreed with the words of Vishnu or Krishna. Rather, he was angered by the intelligence of a Vaishnava. Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna says, Sarvatarmam parityaja mamekam sharanam praja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. But demons like Hiranyakasipu never agreed to do this. Therefore, Krishna says, Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante naradama mayaya parityajana asuram bhavam ashitaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. 7:15 Bhagavad Gita. The asura bhav, the atheistic nature, is directly represented by Hiranyakasipu, such persons being mudha and naradama, fools and rascals. Prabhupada's favorite word. The lowest of men would never accept Vishnu as the supreme and surrender to him. Hiranyakasipu naturally became increasingly angry that his son Prahlad was being influenced by the camp of the enemies. He therefore asked the saintly persons, like Narada, not be allowed within the residential quarters of his son, for otherwise Prahlad would be further spoiled by Vaishnava instructions. Text 7, Hiranyakasipu advised his assistants, my dear demons, give complete protection to this boy at the Gurukula, where he is instructed, so that his intelligence will not be further influenced by Vaishnavas who may go there in disguise. Vishnu Pakshai Pratichanai, or on the side of Vishnu disguised in different dresses. Vishnu Pakshai Pratichanayar. Purport: in our Krishna consciousness movement, the tactic of dressing oneself like an ordinary karmi is necessary because everyone in the demoniac kingdom is against the Vaishnava teachings. Krishna consciousness is not at all to the liking of the demons. of the present age, as soon as they see a Vaishnava dressed in saffron garments with beads on his neck and tilak on his forehead, they are immediately irritated. They criticize the Vaishnavas by sarcastically saying, Hare Krishna. And some people also chant Hare Krishna sincerely. In either case, since Hare Krishna is absolute, whether one chants it jokingly or sincerely, it will have its effect. The Vaishnavas are pleased when the demons chant Hare Krishna, because this shows that the Hare Krishna movement is taking ground. The greater demons, like Hiranyakasipu, are always prepared to chastise the Vaishnavas, and they try to make arrangements so that Vaishnavas will not come to sell their books and preach Krishna consciousness. Thus, what was done by Hiranyakasipu long, long ago is still being done. That is the way of materialistic life. Demons or materialists do not at all like the advancement of Krishna consciousness, and they try to hinder it in many ways. Yet, the preachers of Krishna consciousness must go forward in their Vaishnava dress or any other dress for the purpose of preaching. Chanakya Pandit says that if an honest person deals with a great cheater, it is necessary for him to become a cheater also, not for the purpose of cheating, but to make his preaching successful. Now, sounds like controversy. Yes and no. No and yes. Live by high ethical standards, but now Prabhupada's explanation of this, using Bengali phrase, an expert person knows how to go fishing without getting wet. Meaning, if one is not so expert, then we're just very straightforward. I mean, there's many, many, many places where that's being encouraged for Brahminical culture, to be very straightforward, even with one's enemies, etc., etc. The enemy comes to your door, where are your valuables? Oh, they're over there, sir. Because Brahmana is very straightforward, even in such matters, and regardless of what the matter is, very straightforward, very honest. And that's a hallmark of a Brahmana. And then further, a Vaishnava is Brahminical, at least in the mature stage of being a Vaishnava. Qualities of a Brahmana will become the decorations of such a person, provided they're living by Vaishnava principles. The qualities of a Brahmana will become their decoration. Then it looks like there's yet another level, and the other level is this one. For the sake of, Prabhupada gives an example. Vaishyas may say, "Sir, for you I make no profit." But that's Vaishya talk, because Vaishya can't be a Vaishya without making a profit. So they may say, "Sir, for you I make no profit." But it's Vaishya talk. They're making a profit. But they say, "I'm making no profit." But that's Vaishya talk. And that's part of being a Vaishya, which is different than being a Brahmana. A Brahmana doesn't do such things. So there's the Vaishya and the Brahmana standard, and then there's the Transcendental Vaishnava standard. And Transcendental Vaishnava standard, Prabhupada's explanation is, when a Vaishnava, when speaking about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, There's no question of excessive exaggeration, because what's within the Bhagavad Gita is superlative. So it's the best of this and that and the other thing. It's more a matter of what is going to be effective. A very good example of this in our ISKCON history of late was Bhakti Tirtha Swami. When he was in Africa, he dressed like an African king. When he spoke to African Americans in America, he dressed like an African American king. When he attended programs where he's a Vaishnav, he dressed as a Vaishnav. When he attended gatherings, when he was speaking to educated people, he dressed in a suit and tie. And he was making a point, which is similar to here. The point is, the external is not the essence. Just this morning, listening to Prabhupada speaking in 1966 in New York on second chapter Bhagavad Gita, and he was making the point that, he is in the dress of a sannyasi before he was in the dress of a grahasta, but there's a distinction between the covering and the person, because he's neither grahasta nor a sannyasi, and that's our Vaishnava teaching. So for what is appropriate for one's situation and circumstance of service, one accepts what is appropriate for the situation and service. Desha Kalapatra, time, the place, time, and circumstance. The importance is not to change the essence. Anyway, Prabhupada's taking this example of preaching Krishna consciousness in the West. Well, on the other hand, he was very firm about his not changing attire, not wearing, as he would say, coat pants. He was told that's you to get the West people to accept you wear what they wear. He didn't. And it was uncompromising. And yet compromising for his followers, for their preaching mission. Within boundaries, of course. Text 8. When Hiranyakasipu's servants brought the boy Prahlad back to the Gurukula, the place where the Brahmanas taught the boys, the priests of the demons, Shanda and Amarka, pacified him with mild voices and affectionate words. They inquired from him as follows. Purport: Shanda and Amarka, the priests of the demons, were eager to know from Prahlad Maharaj who the Vaishnavas were that came to instruct him in Krishna consciousness. Their purpose was to discover the names of these Vaishnavas. In the beginning, they did not threaten the boy because when threatened, he might not identify the real culprits. Therefore, they very mildly and peacefully inquired as follows. Text 9. Dear son Prahlad, all peace and good fortune unto you. Badram te satyam kataya. Kindly do not speak lies. Just reply with the truth. These boys you see are not like you, for they do not speak in a deviant way. How have you learned these instructions? How has your intelligence been spoiled in this way? Viparyaya. buddhi. Your intelligence has been spoiled or polluted. Purport: Prahlad Maharaj was still a boy, and therefore his teachers thought that if they pacified the little boy, he would immediately speak the truth, revealing the secret of how the Vaishnavas came there to teach him lessons in devotional service. It was surprising, of course, that in the same school, the other boys of the Daityas were not polluted. Only Prahlad Maharaj was supposedly polluted by the instructions of the Vaishnavas. The main duty of the teachers was to inquire who those Vaishnavas were that came to teach Prahlad and spoil his intelligence. Text 10. Oh, best of your family, has this pollution of your intelligence been brought about by you or by the enemies? We are all your teachers and are very eager to hear about this. Please tell us the truth. Purport: Prahlad Maharaj's teachers were astonished that a small boy could speak such exalted Vaishnava philosophy. Therefore, they inquired about the Vaishnavas who stealthily taught it to him, in order that these Vaishnavas might be arrested and killed in the presence of Prahlad Maharaj's father, Prahlad's father, Hiranyakasipu. So the next verse, and comes up several times, is speaking about, and we'll discuss tomorrow morning, the friend-enemy concept. The friend-enemy concept is problematic. It's fundamental for those in the bodily conception of life. For those, the bodily conception of life is a misidentification of who we are with who we're not. And who we're not is the covering, and who we are is the soul covering that consciousness conception of we're a spirit soul. One identifies with the covering, body and mind, and identifies with it. And with that misconception of I comes the misconception of mine. What's in connection with this body is mine. The I and mine is friend and enemy, because there's things that other than what's mine, and people that are in opposition to mine, they're the enemy. The friends are what support mine. My family, my community, my group. And then there's people that have a different group or affiliation based upon their bodies and minds. And then, therefore, there's a conflict between friends and enemies. It just goes along with the bodily conception, friends and enemies. And so it's spoken of many times in the Bhagavatam, several times during the course of Prahlad's this particular session. But coming up is he's pointing to his teachers, who are brahmanas, should be, would be, but not qualified brahmanas, to identify with the body. Because if you identify with the body, it completely covers the conception of the soul. And how strong is the bodily conception? Even for persons who are practicing spiritual life, how strong is the bodily conception? It's really strong. Really strong. It's one thing to perform duties in relation to family members and community members and human society, and keep going, and all embodied beings doing duties in respectful way according to the codes of Scripture. But if that's not God-centered, then it leads to clash. Invariably, it leads to clash, conflict. And that's our age, where spiritual consciousness is diminished, and material consciousness takes its place, and so there's clash, or quarrel, or conflict, as Prabhupada writes, over trivials. This group, that group, over trivials. So Prahlad is going to speak about what he's hearing from his so-called Brahmana teachers. Is they're teaching illusion, and he's not ready to accept their teachings, their illusion teachings. In the earlier section, it said that Prahlad heard and he performed, but he didn't accept. So he was, our common phrase is, he was in the world but not of the world. He knew how to move through the association of people who misidentify with who they're not. And that's the world in which we live. The reality is that's the world in which we live, and it's very strong. How powerful is Maya? Maya has the whole world dancing in illusion. Whatever the manifestation of material creation is, those who think in terms of the body, and they act according to the body, think of the different species. The birds think that they're a bird, the dog thinks he's a dog, and they do the things, the fish think that they're fish, and they do things without any consideration of who they really are, because they don't have the capacity, because they're covered by the Lord's deluding potency in different modes of nature, and therefore different forms of life. And the human form of life is no different than that principle, unless spiritual consciousness is awakened. So it's a great opportunity, but it's more than just a theoretical understanding. Theoretical understanding, okay, that's good, but it's dramatically inadequate. Just a conceptual understanding. And therefore hearing again and again and again, and then striving to act. So our striving to act in this case on the spiritual platform is hearing from Prahlad. And then hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing, and then moving forward with lifted, raised consciousness, with a less affinity, at least conceptually understanding that this is a problem. Bodily conception of life leads to problems. And the notion of friend-enemy, this is a byproduct of material conception, suffering and conflict and struggle because of conflict. Okay, so tomorrow we'll begin with Prahlad's response to his teachers. Friend-enemy response. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just have a comment to make, Maharaj, that they are discussing about, like, is our enemy teaching him or something, but there is no such enemy actually.
Between whom?
So they are thinking.
Between whom?
Enemy
between whom?
The teachers are thinking that Hiranyakashipu's enemies are teaching Prahlad Maharaj something in the school, Vaishnavas or someone.
Explain yourself. I'm not sure what you're trying to express.
So
Hiranyakashipu is thinking friends enemies. His teachers are thinking friends enemies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Prahlad is not thinking like that.
Yeah. So my thought was that they are thinking about some enemies who are actually not existing. There are no enemies as such, because Lord Vishnu is not their enemy, or Vaishnavas are not their enemies. But they are thinking in
Okay,
those
so
terms.
it's a label
Yeah. Yeah.
that's due to misconception of who they really are and their
Yeah.
benevolence.
Yeah. So my thought was going that in this material world also, like yesterday Prabhu was also saying in our program, in the evening program, that we can't see certain things, but we see something else. So I was trying to connect this point that some people are just fearful, or they are brooding over certain things, or too much anxious. So like even that can happen with me as well. So this is just the illusory, something illusion, some illusion thing is there.
That's your point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
They're
that's what.
thinking enemy, although there's no enemy, and that's their feelings and everything
Yeah.
is part of the illusion.
Yeah, and the whole energy is flowing in that direction, and life is vested like that. So
Yeah, everything. The
yeah.
whole of creation is like that.
Yeah. So our vision can be changed, Maharaj, like by elevation of the consciousness, by hearing from Prahlad Maharaj, and
Yeah.
like seeing actually how Krishna is blessing us and around us, all
Yeah.
those things.
And it's not just, I mean, the human form of life, this is a thought from this, because it's hot and because the air conditioning isn't working, I had my windows open and the birds are singing.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know which kind of birds are singing which songs, but early morning, every morning, singing, 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 and yet they're fearful.
Yes.
And there's anyway, rather than detailing, there's so many these days. The wild birds and beasts are coming closer and closer to human contact. For whatever the reason, they're hungry or whatever the reason. But fearfulness is there. The deer that are by the side of the road and they're looking and then eating, and they're coming closer to that which would otherwise be an object of fear. They're becoming more bold, but it doesn't take it away. So et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Life is going on in all the species of life without just, it's not mindless. It's directed by the living entity seeking gratification according to the modes of nature and getting different bodies and moving and moving and moving and moving. It's an endless stream. And up to the human form of life also, up to and including an endless stream. And how rare is it that this human form of life and the opportunity to understand who we are, and it's very easy for it to slip through our fingers. What's the purpose? Human form of life, what's the purpose? And then how to achieve it. That's our devotional life is centered on those core questions. We're still influenced while we're speaking about how the material energy influences by Maya potency. We're still influenced by Maya potency up and until, and proportionately until pure consciousness is restored. So we have our work cut out for us.
Thank you so much.
So, like this illusion thing, like I know I am an illusion, and I'm doing so many devotional practices, and I am doing those devotional practices also in illusion.
Yes.
So, how to question is how to get out of that. Like some drastic measurements has to be taken. Otherwise, I see it becomes mechanical.
Well, you asked this question, I remember some time ago. I remember you're asking this same question some time ago. You asked it in terms of cooking. I remember. I'm so much conditioned to cooking for my family, and how do I get to I'm cooking for Krishna consciousness? Same. We can otherwise it's just mechanical. I mean it's not wasted, but it's not the purpose. You're feeling uncomfortable about the purpose isn't being connected with adequately. That's the beginning. So your how-to question is, I'm responding, is being introspective. And then the same process is how you got to even mechanical as opposed to just being like an animal, is by hearing. And then the qualitative hearing, where starting with what the preliminary desire, it's important to go further in the bhakti process. How did we get started anyways? According to scripture, there's a preliminary attraction or interest, faith in knowing who I am, self-realization. Say it in different ways. Atato Brahma Jigyasa, inquisitive into the nature of Brahman. So now that you're doing some practices that are meant to A and B, cleanse the covering, awaken that spirit of attraction, you go revisit that purpose again. I'll answer your question by saying recently a teenager who they got really inspired after years of growing up in a family where they were practicing Krishna Bhakti. They decided they wanted to become initiated. They spoke to the temple president. He gave them this is our standards over here. And she was doing all those standards, including her 16 rounds and this and that, because they have some standards. Last time I was with her, how's it going? It's become mechanical. So it was a quick exchange because of circumstance. I said, hit the pause button, and then ask yourself the question, why? You can elaborate, but why is it important to become initiated? Why is it important to chant 16 rounds? Why am I putting my hand in my bead bag? Why am I, etc., etc.? And if you don't have the purpose behind the activity clear, it becomes mechanical. Too much investment in the ritual without the understanding of the purpose behind it. We don't trash the ritual, but we to get the fruit, there's a purpose behind it. And so that's the why question. And so connect with it.
Yeah, so about this ritual thing, but if we don't decide some definite things to do, then it never happens, whether
So,
it is
okay.
mechanical or it is.
Then it's neglect. That's the other side. Doing mechanically or discarding that which is meant to help you get to the right destination. It's in Rupa Goswami's teachings. So what's the purpose? That's the why question, just in simple why. Why is this? And because without the why answer, it fades over time.
I have one more question. It is from yesterday's class about this Vanprastha thing. So, is Vanprastha different for a woman and a man?
Yes.
How will it be different for a?
How is it different between the man and the woman?
Yeah.
Well, it's the relationship of a man and a woman, or a husband and a wife. I would assume we're speaking husband-wife, not just a woman off in Timbuktu. But in the relationship of husband and wife, it's a role, that's all. The role is we, husband and wife, are acknowledging we're at a stage of life where such and such, and because of that stage of life and such, we should transition to the next phase from the grahastha to the vanaprastha. And for us, for me as the husband and for me as the wife, these are steps that I think are doable for me or for us. And you start doing those things, which is diminishing over here and increasing over there. Increasing over there commonly is increasing the hearing and chanting activities, winding down the material involvement activities, winding down, not just trashing, and spending more time leaving the home and going to holy places for some period of time and then returning together as husband and wife. But, less investment in the griha, more investment in the destination. Because I want to leave behind that stage, but not so abruptly or artificially or something. So increase connecting with the transcendental and winding down the worldly.
So, like as a woman, like I am more attached to my children, my home. So,
Maybe some cases yes, in some cases no. Maybe in your case yes. Maybe characteristically yes. But then how do you connect that connection? How do you connect that affinity for the vanaprastha stage? Well, it's again the why question. What's my mission in life? And if I don't connect with my mission in life, it's another birth and death. It's just I'm not taking proper advantage of this human form of life. And not taking proper advantage means continued bondage. So it's not something extreme or radical or artificial or impulsive. It's something that's thoughtful. To make spiritual life, it requires being thoughtful. And then that thoughtfulness is applied to what's appropriate for the next stage. Bhaktivinoda has a nice teaching. One may be characterized as being at a particular stage if they just stay stuck there. Alternatively, it can be a description of a trajectory where always they're moving towards the next. He lived his life that way, and he taught that way, that one should always be aspiring, and not just aspiring, but practically applying the principles that help progress. I mean, your question is a good question. It some compliments to you. It indicates your thoughtfulness, because many people don't have that thoughtfulness. They just do their duties because that's their duties. Your specific question is, what's the role of earlier, the role of a wife compared to the role of a husband in the vanaprastha stage? You have your function as a wife and as a mother, and you don't have to trash it. But you're assisting your husband, and together moving towards the vanaprastha stage, towards the stage of winding down this and increasing over there. And your husband may take inspiration from his good wife, that she's not the lead, I'm the lead, I'm the husband, but she has this inspiration, and I know that she's not there yet, as I'm not there yet, but she's striving, and I'm inspired by her striving, so let's move together. So that's your function. The wife to the husband function role doesn't change, but just it's moving in that direction according to the dynamic of the relationship and the purpose of life. Dialing down this and making increases over there in ways mentioned.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. I see your enthusiastic hand being raised.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. You mentioned something interesting about reality and illusion. What Srila Prabhupada mentioned came to my mind, and perhaps a question from that. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned that this material world is not false, but temporary. And this is an important distinction from the Mayavadi philosophy. And I really would like to follow this point here. And this is important for me so that I orient myself toward my various duties that I've picked up. Otherwise, it's very easy for me to say, oh, it's just an illusion and I don't care about all these other things. But instead, the way I'm orienting myself is I'm orienting myself much more and trying to put myself more in the consciousness that I need to do these duties because they are pleasing to Krishna. And yes, I still have those material affinities, and whatever degree they may be, but I'm not going to let go of them prematurely, basically. So am I on the right track?
The right track, yes, just the emphasis, the conventional expression that says I'm doing this for Krishna is a seed. However, the seed needs to be nourished, implemented, applied in the form of the internal cultivation of that purpose. That, or say same thing in a different way. Bhakti has the power to eradicate, to diminish and eradicate material affinity. Say it the other way. Without bhakti being present, it's platitudes. It's cosmetic. It's not effective. A slogan doesn't make a heart that's now no longer having material attraction. Say it the other way. Bhakti has the power to diminish material affinity. So bhakti is the key to move to achieving the mission of human life. So our attention goes to bhakti, which is the why question. That Krishna is to be pleased. It's easy to say, no, I'm doing this because it'll please Krishna. And it's another thing to actually have that motivation because it's pleasing to Krishna. I do and I don't do. That's the bhakti principle. You have something, yes?
On the same line, so I was just wondering that because as a humans, our nature is to kind of grow in any direction, whether we are in spiritual or in, if we do something like a job or our own work or whatever our purpose in life, because we are all here and we want to do something. So is it wrong to kind of grow on a professional side, even though we strive for spiritual growth and we kind of know that, I know that is an illusion, and we all, I mean, I don't know if we all know, but many of us know that it's an illusion, that why are we striving so much for professional growth, because our ultimate abode is to live in spiritual consciousness
Yes.
and go back to
Yes.
Godhead.
Is
it wrong?
It's not wrong. It's to move from conditioned to pure, it's gradual. So it's not wrong to move gradually. It's right to move gradually. As the strength of bhakti grows, then the weight that's given to something that's in the category of illusion will diminish. Take, for example, a nice example for a householder is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because he was a householder. His profession was at the very top. No, it wasn't per se that he was striving for a profession that places him at the top. But one way of looking at the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur is there were one way is he's just ascended and he's performing a pastime. Another is he became perfect. So just taking that model that he became perfect. Whether he's demonstrating and he's not really perfect, he's always perfect, becoming perfect. I mean, he was searching, and his autobiography describes his searching and his finding different things and discarding some other things and moving along and moving along. And it's specifically in terms of his professional life, his starting profession matched his nature. His starting profession didn't match his nature. The starting profession for Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, because he was from an aristocratic family and his father had died when he was young, some aristocratic associate gave him a job when he graduated from college as a manager of something. But he was using his Brahminical nature. He found a discrepancy in the bookkeeping where a customer was overcharged, so he gave that money back to the customer who was overcharged. And the supervisor said, "You have the wrong profession. You don't do that in this profession. You should become a teacher," or something like that. So he became a teacher, and then he became a judge, and then so forth. So his professional growth was matching his nature, but the highest attainment in his profession got to the point where he was using whatever he had, his truthful and fearless nature, even when he was younger in his profession, but that just grew and grew because of his bhakti, to the point where he didn't need that profession anymore. He requested, "I want to live in the Holy Land where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lives," and he was denied and denied, and so he quit. So they said, "Okay, we'll give you that position in Mayapur." So he was connecting his professional capacities with service. He was still doing, things that required courage, intelligence, and strength. He was using it. And then at some point it just wasn't needed anymore. So it's okay. Is it okay? It's okay. Provided the spiritual purpose in life is growing and it's driving further those improvements in the professional life, when the purpose is fading about, the satisfaction I have of professional growth and the financial and this and that and the other thing that I get from the perks that I get from professional growth, recognition and self-achievement, financials, this and that. So gardens grow organically, and the spiritual life is like a garden, and it should grow organically, gradually. and then when it becomes mature, then the material attraction for perks, etc., fades, and then you have what's left. You know, a living entity with a certain set of skills and a certain set of resources because of those skills, and you use those in Krishna service organically. Now the risk is, if I don't go enough on this side, I'm going to be stuck over on that side. So then it takes this, you know, the why question and the introspection aspect. What's my goal? And am I doing that which is meant for the achieving the goal, or is it too much on that side instead of on this side? The internal management of your purpose in life is a responsibility. If you become complacent, then the material takes over by default. Dial down the spiritual, material takes over by default. Diminish the light and the darkness will come. You don't have to wait. Immediately. Okay. You have something, last something, we're going to end.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this question is related to the class that was day before yesterday. I actually missed one point, so I just want to confirm that, is this right understanding? We were talking about how Prahlad Maharaj was questioned by his friends that, were you not scared of snakes? And he said, no, because that's my father's bed. And then, are you not scared of poison? And he said that
This is from yesterday evening.
yesterday.
Yesterday evening. Kripamoya.
Oh,
Kripamoya
yeah.
spoke this yesterday
Okay.
evening.
Yeah.
Kripamoya, I didn't speak this.
Okay. Should I continue with the
Yeah,
question?
you can go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't get the fire one. It was my father's tongue. I didn't understand that part.
I don't remember. Do you remember?
Fire also. So Prahlad Maharaj said, I was not scared of fire because it is my father's tongue. Because in Yajna, the fire is Vishnu is accepting the.
Okay. Do we have any online? No. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.